Hi, everybody. It's the IC Topic Chat. It is September 18th, 2025. Of course, it is Goshen Consulting's 16th anniversary. We call it Founders Day around here, and we're excited to celebrate that by being a part of this IC Topic Chat, something that's 5.5 years in the making. And today may be one of our biggest sessions yet because we're joined by Vishakha Ramakrishnan. Am I saying your name correctly? Yes. Hey, I practiced. I did. And I practiced spelling it because there's an H that almost forget every time I spell out your name. But I'm so happy I got it, and I'm so happy that you're here. And I know you're going to talk to us about how independent consultants can use artificial intelligence. So with that, Vishaka, I'm going to pass it off to you. I'm going to take off my spotlight and let you take over the presentation. Thank you very much for being here. Oh, I got you on mute now. We're going to play the mute button game, aren't we? Go right ahead.
Hi. Yeah. So I was just saying, I really appreciate the irony of starting an AI presentation with technological difficulties. So thank you all so much for your patience as I got all of this together. And let me share my screen. Okay. Wonderful. So let me just make sure we are sharing.
And we had you on we had it up just a second ago, but then it went away. Oh,
Oh,
there we go. It's looking good, or it's starting anyway.
amazing. Okay. So welcome to our AI and entrepreneurship chat, everyone. I'm so excited to talk to you about everything today. I have been blessed or cursed with the gift of gab, depending on your perspective on it. So I will try to talk as quickly as I can. I know we're getting started a little bit late, but I'm really excited for a robust conversation about this. And yeah, let's just get into it. So I wanted to talk about using AI kind of through the framework of the phases of the entrepreneurship journey. So, the first phase, as I describe it, is just getting started with your design and rebranding. The second phase is networking and finding projects and applying for them. The third is just all of the admin tasks that we do. The fourth phase, I talk about doing the work. And then at the end, we have a little bit of time for discussion, depending on how rapidly I speak. I'm from New Jersey, where we've been told that we talk really fast. So please feel free to tell me to speed up or slow down. I will be looking at the comments. Okay. So, a little bit about me. My name is Vishakha Ramakrishnan. I'm a program evaluation trainer and consultant with Peridot Projects. I started actually in the field of public health. I was at the CDC in Atlanta for about 6 years and got just like a scooch burnt out by that disease called COVID. I don't know if people all remember that, but decided to take my skills elsewhere and go independent in 2023. And I've pivoted to working more in the arts and culture space. So you can find me evaluating your local museum. I am currently based in Washington, D.C., in our nation's capital, but I'm moving to Chicago soon. So if you're from the Midwest, please DM me, email me, boots recommendations, coats, anything to weather the weather. I need a lot of help. Thank you. So, setting the stage today. We are going to be focusing on practical guidance and application of AI. I've been to a lot of AI talks, and a lot of them are very policy oriented, very high level. That's not going to be today at all. It's going to be much more of a conversation. So you'll be hearing my personal experiences. I will be embarrassing myself today. I will be including really embarrassing ChatGPT things that I've put in there, just being very vulnerable with you all, hopefully to help you with your own AI journeys. I also have a real life example of qualitative analysis. So you may have received a survey prior to this presentation. I gathered 45 survey responses from audiences across LinkedIn, some consulting networks I'm in, and then, of course, meeting registrants for this. It's all qualitative data, and I did that on purpose. You may have seen the survey and thought, this is not really looking like a survey. That was on purpose. It's because I just wanted long form qualitative responses to use ChatGPT to analyze. And then I analyzed the data, as I said, using ChatGPT and Claude to sort of demonstrate the strengths and common pitfalls of using AI for analysis. And then finally, I like to say that research is me search. We are on this journey together. I decided to do this topic because I was also very curious to see what you all are doing with AI for your consulting businesses. So there's some things that I haven't tried myself, and I'm really excited to talk a little bit about these all together. Okay, so getting started with your design and branding or rebranding, depending on where you are. So I like to say that AI is my personal ideas factory. So on July 7th, 2024, after working as a sole proprietor under my own name for close to a year, I decided that it was time to just pick a business name, get that process moving. So I used ChatGPT to brainstorm some ideas. Here is my real life prompt from July 7th. Help me with finding a business name. I like the idea of having an alliteration. It's a consulting company. My previous business was called Quartz Evaluation, but I don't want evaluation in the new name of my new business. I feel it's too limiting. My birth month is August. I like the idea of the brand being gender neutral and professional. One idea I had was Peridot Insights, but it's not feeling right. I've considered Peridot Projects as well. So cutting to the end of the story, we know that I landed on Peridot Projects, which was my original idea anyway, but just for the purpose of this presentation, let's just go on this journey together. So here are some ideas for your new consulting business. Kind of going back to that ideas factory idea, this is just, they're telling me all sorts of different names that I can use. I like some of these, are very professional. ChatGPT helpfully says at the bottom, they aim to be gender neutral and professional. That's great. I'm thinking it doesn't really have to be an alliteration. I just kind of want a similar vibe as Peridot Partners. The crystal reference is nice. The month August, warmth of partnering with someone. Here are some names that capture the same vibe as Peridot Partners. At this point, ChatGPT spits out 10 of the most absurd business names imaginable, including things like Topaz Together and Jade Junction, which honestly seem like cartoon characters from a children's show. Very helpfully at the bottom, they evoke the same professional and warm feel. I don't know about that. I said, did I stutter? You don't have to alliterate. And then ChatGPT says, okay, I'm so sorry. Here's some other ideas. So you kind of understand, what I was using ChatGPT for. Again, I love this, the ideas factory. If you're like me, when you make a decision about your business name, you need to know all the options, right? I ended up going with Peridot Projects, which was my original idea, but ChatGPT helped me kind of see like all of the different ways of combining words that might suit my needs. So that is my real life example from July 2024. But going deeper for your content audit and optimization, I think ChatGPT and chatbots and AI can be really helpful for actually getting deep into your brand positioning and how to repurpose your existing content. So in March of 2025, I was redesigning my service offerings two-pager. I'm not going to read out this whole prompt, but essentially you can see that I kind of had an idea of 4 things that I wanted to do with my business. I was like, these are the services that I provide, and I'm trying to just convey them in a punchy way to be more attractive to anyone I might work with. So here's just some ideas of blurbs. You'll be able to see this later if you want to read these more. But for example, I was like, I want to emphasize the C-suite level thinking and support that I provide. Here's a blurb from my website. Can you use this vibe? Could you break these into 4 categories? Can you help me improve the statement, et cetera, et cetera? So finally, this is my 2-pager. All of the design I did myself. I know that there are design tools out there, but I'm very picky about my design. So if you're like me, I like to do this stuff organically. That's just me. But this text was very much shaped by the conversation I was able to have with AI. So you saw in the beginning that I had 4 service offerings. I was able to frame these as your challenge and how I help. And the way that this sort of helps me target the work that I'm doing to who I'm speaking to. I want this to speak directly to the senior leader that I'm handing this over to by saying, using language like your challenge and then how I can solve their problems. So tools to help you get started with consulting. My idea, the multi-purpose ones, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, I use ChatGPT for the prompts that I just demonstrated. I've since moved over to Claude, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But some things that you can do are business name brainstorming, market research questions, email templates, and communication. I think we're all generally familiar with this. The next is Perplexity. So I haven't personally used Perplexity, but you all mentioned this in the survey responses, and I think that this would be very helpful for competitor research, client persona research, and then figuring out what's going on in the regulatory or compliance landscape. And then finally, my favorite, Canva. I pay whatever the $17 a month for Canva. I get my money's worth out of Canva. I know Canva also has AI tools in it. I don't necessarily rely on those. It's great for image generation. But again, I'm a more of an organic Canva user, but I know that AI is out there, and some of you mentioned that in your survey responses as well. Okay, so I know that I am talking so quickly. So are there any questions in the chat or anything? Okay, so I'm seeing here, +1 for Canva. Copilot comes with Microsoft 360. Any reason why this doesn't get mentioned as an AI tool? It does, and only once. So I do present the list of the tools that everyone mentions. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Awesome. Is Canva only cloud-based? Yeah, so it's all online. You do need to have an internet connection, I believe, to be able to use Canva, which is really unfortunate because I've been on some like very lengthy flights that I have wanted to just do design work on, and unfortunately you do need an internet connection as far as I'm able to tell.
ChatGPT versus Claude versus Gemini. I have an ongoing kind of conversation, I guess is the best way to put it, with my partner about why are we paying extra for ChatGPT when Gemini comes bundled with our Google enterprise account. What's your thought? I don't know anything about Claude because we're not using that. So what are your thoughts between those two?
I used to be a ChatGPT payer, and I have since stopped paying for ChatGPT because Gemini is so great and it's free. So
Okay,
that's
you
kind
guys
of
all
where
heard
I'm
that.
at.
If
That's where
you
I'm
know
at
my
with it.
partner, tell her that. But
I will.
okay. Okay. So here's the thing. She said she's not here. She's in a
Mhm.
meeting, so I could be in trouble for having this conversation. But she says, but ChatGPT knows me. Like it understands me. I have a
Mhm.
relationship with ChatGPT. So talk to me about that conversion.
You have to build a relationship with Gemini too. You'll have to build a relationship with whichever tool that you use. But I had about a year of data in ChatGPT building that relationship. I downgraded my account, and I'm still getting that value of that personalization. Um,
And then
yeah.
where does Claude fit into this conversation?
Oh, great question. I will get to that in a
Okay.
minute. Okay. Moving on, everyone. I'm so sorry I have to talk so fast. This is entirely my fault for not understanding computers. Okay. So, networking, finding projects, and applying to them. So, using AI for writing support, I think, is the best use case for this. So, you use AI to create custom cover letters, proposal writing and RFP responses, LinkedIn messaging templates for outreach, email drafts. AI is so good for writing. I would recommend using Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini for this purpose, but personally, I love using Gemini for writing. My kind of go-to dad joke for this is that Google or Gmail has been reading our emails for the past 15 years, right? So I feel like if there's one system that knows how humans write emails, it's Gemini. They've had access to everyone's email. So when I want to write an email, Gemini is definitely my go-to. It's way more human sounding than anything else. So, kind of to that point, so I've used AI to help with refining my elevator pitches. I found that Gemini is, again, the best for human sounding writing. But then the key considerations for using AI for anything that's supposed to reflect your voice is that make sure that it's personal and make sure it sounds genuine. So, Gemini is my personal go to email writing assistant. Here's an example of something that I put in. I did a pro bono evaluation for this group, and I wanted to kind of reach out to them and ask if they would be interested in paid work. So I would like to ask this group that I did a quick pro bono analysis for whether they're interested in creating a formal consulting agreement that is paid. This is what I have so far. So I drafted an email first, right? I'm not asking Gemini to craft something from nothing. I have an idea of what I want to say. But then I asked Gemini, can you help me make sure that it sounds approachable, but not forceful, but also clear? Which, if I asked this to a human being, they'd be like, you're crazy. But Gemini was able to take that in and say, thank you. Yes, I will help you. So I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about LinkedIn posts with AI. So I feel like I have kind of not even a sixth sense. It seems like one of my normal five senses of telling when someone has used AI to write their LinkedIn post. This is a real post. I just went on LinkedIn and this is a sponsored person, so don't worry. I think they are okay with the visibility that I'm giving them right now. But kind of ironically, this is definitely written by AI, but it's a post about how AI is going to take over job applications. I was like, the irony is it's there. It's ironying. So I think my concern with using AI for LinkedIn is that you're time saving, but at the cost of authenticity. So from your perspective, what are some telltale signs that someone's misusing AI for their marketing and writing? And do you use AI to help you draft your LinkedIn posts? Emojis. I agree. Like, why are there so many emojis on LinkedIn? M dashes, bolding patterns are popping up. Yeah, exactly. So something M dashes are so annoying. I know. I hate that AI has taken the M dash from me as someone who used these religiously. I'm so upset that the minute I put an M dash in something, it looks like ChatGPT wrote it. I actually submitted a conference, a blurb, like an abstract about what I was going to speak to at a conference. And I had put an M dash in it and I had written the blurb probably in January. But by the time the conference came around in July, I read it again. I was like, it looks like ChatGPT now. So I had to like email them and last minute be like, can I just edit this and just throw in a comma or a colon? Okay, so what is an M dash? So an M dash, there's actually multiple different types of dashes. There's an N dash and an M dash and a hyphen. So a hyphen is the shortest one. All of these kind of refer to the length of the dash, oddly. So a hyphen is the shortest one. It's when you kind of are combining two different words. So in Elizabeth's comment where she said M dash, that's actually a hyphen. An N dash is the size of a lowercase n, and then an M dash is the size of a lowercase m. So basically, it kind of means that you're combining two different concepts. It's almost like a semicolon, but it kind of mimics the way that we speak, right? You kind of pause and then continue what you're saying. That's what the M dash does. So originally, it was a great tool for us just communicating like normal people, but now it means that you're a computer. So hate to see it. Okay, moving forward. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is all networking. I find 99.9% of my projects through networking. I'm a big talker, emailer, LinkedIner. I'm not applying to things. I'm not finding projects online and applying to them. So this was a learning for me. There are apparently a lot of tools out there for finding work and applying to it. So I pulled some of these here. Apparently Upwork has an AI powered matching tool. There's freelancer AI job recommendations. There's something called Contra AI and we work remotely. I don't have any personal experience with these tools, but I know that there are things out there to sort of aid in that. I know it can be super frustrating to just need to find RFPs that you're a good fit for and just have a really hard time with that. And then on the bottom here, proposal and application tools. This was interesting. I use my generic ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude for writing in general. So, but I didn't know that there are actually proposal creation tools. So there's an AI for everything now, apparently. So Proposify and PandaDoc kind of came up in my research. But more importantly, here's what you all said about using AI for creating RFPs and applying for projects. So 20% of us use this. I was surprised that it was actually so little. Some of these quotes here, they help me brainstorm ideas, summarize reports, create checklists for RFPs, draft outlines for RFPs. I use it for proposals. I use AI to assess my strengths and gaps for a specific job opening. I mean, it's clear that there's a lot of opportunity here around using AI wisely and creatively for your applications. And kind of the cynical part of me is wondering whether if you're not using AI right now, you might be at a disadvantage because all of your competitors who are applying for the same things are using AI to problem solve and make sure that their contracts and everything they're applying for are really airtight and powerful. So just putting it out there, I'm not trying to tell people to use AI, but I just think that there's a significant opportunity here to improve your work with these tools that are free and available, and your colleagues are already using them. So if you want to stay competitive, it might be a good idea to start incorporating some of these tools into your applications. Okay, so here's some administrative tasks, and here's us getting buried by them. There's a lot. We are independent consultants. I don't think that we became independent because we love admin. I think we became independent because we love the work and probably hate admin. So this was the research is me search piece. I don't use AI for any of my admin work, and honestly, it's terrible. So I wanted to do some research on how to do this. The most time consuming tasks for me personally are around invoicing and tax preparation. These are the least exciting parts of my work. And also, it's kind of like a high risk situation, too. You really want your invoices to be perfect. You really need your taxes to be perfect. And finances are just difficult in general and very stressful. I'm not a finance person. So, the survey results show that only 2 people actually mentioned finance specific AI tools, and Expensify was the only specialized financial AI tool mentioned. So, this was actually surprising to me because finance is a major administrative burden for us as consultants, but very few of us are using AI tools specifically for financial management, which is interesting. Kind of uncovers that there might be a gap here. So here's some that I pulled. I did sort of an online scrape of what we can use for invoicing and taxes. From our original list, kind of our familiar favorites, we have ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. It's going to help you with invoice descriptions, payment follow-up, expense categorization, tax planning things. We kind of know what this multi-purpose tool can do for us. And then there's also Expensify, which I'm actually interested to try now because I would love to have this invoice creation and tax ready report kind of service available. And then here's 2 other tools that were mentioned by respondents, and they can be used for finance management. So they weren't necessarily used for finances, but here's some other uses that might be interesting. So the first is Honeybook AI. This can actually be used for automated invoicing and payment tracking and project management. So this was very intriguing to me. And then there's also this other thing called make.com that will help you find automated financial workflows and then automate invoice to payment processes and tax document organization. So I'm not super familiar with make.com, but this was kind of what seemed to be out there as far as just the things that you all mentioned in the survey. And then additional tools that we didn't mention because I'm nothing if not well researched. There is FreshBooks and QuickBooks and all of these things that you might have heard of. QuickBooks specifically, they do have AI tools now. Again, there's an AI for everything and it's in everything's kind of unavoidable. The thing that really caught my eye here is Wave because it's free. Amazing. We love free things. We like keeping our margins really low. We like keeping most of our money that we earn. So free AI powered invoicing, automated reminders, amazing. I'm definitely going to look into this. And then I was also interested in seeing, are there any things that are specific to consultants that we can use as entrepreneurs, right? One of these is Keeper Tax that's actually specifically made for independent contractors and freelancers. And another is QuickBooks Self-Employed, which I've never heard of. So you might all be way ahead of the ball here, but this does automatic expense categorization, mileage tracking, invoice creation. Great stuff. Great stuff to look into for myself as well. Okay, so now we're going to get into doing the work. But before that, I know I have about 20 minutes to talk about this because I appropriately sped through my other sections. So we do have a second for any questions if anyone has anything to bring up.
There was a lot of conversation about how to make an M dash going on, but
Oh,
I'm not
amazing.
sure we're entirely on track.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'll ask my question about the value of potentially crushing the work on your own without AI and being able to claim that. Uh, I I understand someone responded in the chat saying, "Well, then it looks like you're behind the time." I'm not saying I never use it or I would say that I never use it, but if I
Mhm.
can crush something off the top of my head,
Yeah.
um, and AI is going to only add a little value, I think that reviewers are probably getting sick of the exact same language coming in to their
Yeah.
proposals and saying no AI was used, I think could be an advantage for the authenticity reason you mentioned.
I think it depends on the person that you're applying to and the type of position. Um, I think that if you are able to sense from the values of the organization that that's something that they would care about, that's totally your judgment. I think that you would be setting yourself at a slight disadvantage, though, because you might have some thinking gaps or holes in your reasoning that someone who used Gemini even just once might be able to catch. Um,
Yeah, but 100 other people are going to say that exact same thing.
Well, see, that's actually interesting, right? Because there's multiple ways of using AI and you have to use it properly. The best way to use AI is to use it to enhance your existing wordage and your existing knowledge and abilities. If someone's just plopping in an RFP into Gemini and spitting it out and submitting that, everyone can tell, right? I think the key is to use these tools as partners, as brainstorming tools, rather than as content generating tools. Even when I submit emails and I'm asking Gemini to help me with emails, I'm not saying, Gemini, write me an email. I'm writing the email, right? So you, Jason, would be submitting your version of what you think needs to happen in this project. But what you'll be asking AI to do is say, hey, what are some questions that would come up if you were scoring this? What are some areas that you think that I need to tighten up a little bit? And that just makes your product a little bit tighter.
Interesting. Thanks.
Yeah.
There was also quite a bit of conversation about Copilot since it's built in.
Mhm.
Could you say a couple words about whether that's really worth it?
Okay, so interestingly, I did the version of the Microsoft package that does not have Copilot because I did not want to pay for Copilot. So they were actually automatically upgrading everyone with your Microsoft 365 subscription. If you go in and threaten to quit and threaten to delete it, they will give you an option that keeps you at the original Microsoft 365 price without Copilot. So I actually have the least amount of experience with Copilot because I didn't want that kind of forced on me. And I prefer to use other tools. So I'm not as familiar. But I mean, it's interesting because Microsoft has Copilot. Microsoft also owns OpenAI. So ChatGPT should technically have a lot of similar functionality, if I'm not wrong. But does anyone have specific experience with um, Copilot that might convince me to start using it and paying for it?
Yeah, I mean, I have Copilot in my Microsoft, and first of all, now it is connected to ChatGPT. If you want to turn that on, it will connect to ChatGPT, and you can actually connect it to your ChatGPT account if you want. They have expanded Copilot so that so if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you know you can have a project with instructions. You can put files in there for your AI to look at, and then there's a prompt. Um, Copilot is moving towards that. You can now tell it about the project. You can also just point it towards your documents because it does have access to all of your Microsoft stuff. So you can tell it to go look at this document and that document and that document. And then, you know, if you're following a good framework for creating your prompts, right, you are giving your AI a role. You are an expert in whatever. You're giving it what's the context? What are the constraints? What does success look like? Right? You're telling it these things so that it is not just sort of willy nilly doing everything. And you've spent some time to teach it your voice and tone, right? So yeah, it'll do the same stuff as ChatGPT. It just does it in a slightly different configuration.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it sounds like it's really much more integrated into your existing workflow. So you're not necessarily needing to leave what you're doing to enter another program and start working in that. So you can definitely see the value in that. Okay, I'm going to continue speeding ahead, and then we will have more time for discussion at the end. Awesome. Okay, so as I mentioned, I wanted to pull some survey data so I could kind of walk you through what it looks like to do qualitative analysis with ChatGPT and with Claude. So just a brief reminder, we had 45 responses from audiences across LinkedIn, across my consulting networks that I'm in a couple Slack groups, and then meeting registrants for this meeting as well. And then there were just 2 questions. I wanted to gather all qualitative data, and then I analyzed it using ChatGPT and Claude. So I think we're pretty familiar with what AI can be used for quantitative analysis. And I was just curious because I just wanted to say, hey, Gemini, what should I say to this group of evaluators about using AI for analysis? And it kind of gave me the common talking points that we've all heard, right? Predictive modeling, automated data cleaning, advanced pattern recognition, natural language processing, automated visualization. I feel like these are very conceptual ideas and they're not very practical. I'm not using this necessarily I'm not using machine learning for predictive modeling, right? I'm an evaluation consultant working on these smaller projects for museums. They're not asking me to do any type of predictive modeling, really. So using AI for analysis, what Vishakha does as opposed to what Gemini says we should do. So when it comes to quantitative analysis, I handle all of the core data crunching myself. I use AI to brainstorm significant analysis questions for my audience. This is where I find it the most helpful, honestly, just to say, what will people actually want to know about this data? What should I be looking for? I'll also use chatbots to refine my formulas. And if I'm feeling spicy, I might throw in a pivot table into ChatGPT or into Claude, mostly Claude at this point, to see what insights that I may have missed. So for the types of quantitative analysis I do, asking a chatbot to perform the work would take just as long as me doing it myself. And then I would still have to double check its work. So it's really not the best use of my time. And again, this is my personal experience, right? I am not working with data sets of 500, 1,000, et cetera, different cases. I'm working with relatively small, up to 200 types of data sets. And I'm pretty good at statistics at this point. So I can kind of do that on my own. I love using, I think specifically what I've been using Gemini for recently is a lot of my clients have moved over to Google Sheets instead of using Excel. And the formulas in Google Sheets are a little bit different. And if I'm just trying to say, like, I just want to pull the month from this date column, and I want it to present as the month with the word, how to do that in Excel and how to do that in Google Sheets is completely different. So I just asked Gemini, what is this formula? Just please give me the formula. I don't want it to take more than 10 minutes for me to figure this out because I have a call later today and I just want to be able to pull this data. Super helpful for things like that and for coding. So the highest value for me is with qualitative analysis. At this point, my work skews heavily towards qualitative analysis. I am running around the museum interrupting people during their museum experience, asking them what they think about Monet, right? I'm taking down notes and sometimes I'm audio recording, but mostly I'm just scribbling as fast as I can as I'm talking to people. And I'm going home and I'm either typing it up or I'm using Otter AI to try and transcribe that. And I know that in the survey responses, we got a lot of people who use Otter as well. But this is kind of where I am in my business right now. And this is where I've seen the significant value of AI tools. So I also only use AI for qualitative analysis when the number of respondents is under 50 for the specific project that I'm doing, for the specific set of data that I'm working with, because this allows me to know my data deeply before using any tools. I use AI to help me validate my hypothesis and then validate my coding. And I ask really specific questions. Like, for example, I was working with this career organization. What did people think of the resume support workshop at the job fair? It'll tell me, it'll help me pull quotes. Finding specific quotes is really helpful. And then I'm not using it to kind of discover what's going on in my data. it can be helpful for that, but I'm also using it just to validate my own thoughts and experiences with the data, right? I'm also usually the person who's done the interviews. So I'm coming in with a little bit of a bias. ChatGPT or Claude in this case is very helpful in kind of helping me decide, like, does this actually hold water? Am I right here? Great as kind of a collaborator. But again, knowing my data is super important. A quick example of when AI kind of led me astray. I did 15 interviews and I had a different document for each interview. I technically did 16 interviews, but interview number 8 was just cut short. It didn't make any sense. So I had documents labeled document 1 through 7 and then 9 through 16. When I put it into AI, it said, we love these the 16 responses that you provided. It hadn't picked up on the fact that interview number 8 didn't exist. So it was telling me things like, these are the statistics, but one of the interviews, we were uncertain about where it landed. Yeah, because it didn't exist. Like that interview didn't happen, right? Don't tell me you don't know what the interview is about. It literally, you have no data on it. So again, knowing the data is key. Okay, apologies, I'm rambling. Need to keep going. Okay, so survey responses on qualitative analysis. Being very self-referential here, I took all of the survey responses from our 45 people and I said, in the data, can you help me find examples and quotes of how people use AI tools for qualitative analysis? This is Claude, by the way. Claude said, looking through the data, here are examples and quotes about using AI for qualitative analysis. What I really like about Claude is that it'll tell me who the respondent is. So I'm actually able to go back and confirm that this is correct and the interpretation is correct. But for example, this is what some of our respondents said. I've used Claude to analyze interview and survey data. I was pleased with how it triangulated my findings. We're using Claude to analyze open-ended text responses. And then one person said, I use CoLoop for qualitative analysis of interviews and focus groups, Perplexity for research, and then Claude and ChatGPT for writing prompts and alternative language. So a lot of us are already using AI tools for qualitative research. I just want to kind of normalize the use here because I know that there can be a lot of hesitance about using AI, and I'm positive that the people who are using AI for qualitative analysis are doing so wisely because we're evaluators. We know the data. We're not going to recklessly, say things that an AI tool is telling us if we know it's not true. And then here is one response that kind of speaks to exactly how I use Claude for qualitative responses. So I read the report and tag what I think the key findings are, and then we run it through AI with a lengthy prompt. Then, you have a human review, right? You're comparing the AI's takeaway with your own, and then refining it, and then correcting it. So this is a very iterative process where no one's just plugging into AI and then using those responses at all. And then this is definitely what I found as well. 75% overlap between what I found in the AI. In some cases, the 25% were things I missed or the AI making something up. So 25% is kind of big, but I think the value in finding the things you missed is priceless. And then, of course, you need to have a good head on your shoulders to understand when the AI is making something up. So key insights from the data. Here's some usage patterns. So CoLoop is actually the most mentioned specialized qualitative analysis tool with 3 users, and I have personally never used CoLoop before. I'm imagining that this might be helpful for data sets probably bigger than my personal threshold of 50. I would love to kind of at the end of this presentation, if anyone in the audience uses CoLoop, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Claude is preferred for interview and survey data analysis. So I mentioned that I am a full convert to Claude now, and I want to show you why. I did some of the qualitative analysis in ChatGPT and then also in Claude, and I want you to be able to compare just for yourselves the quality of the results I got. Hybrid human AI approach is common. AI assists, but humans validate. This is super important. If you're going to just use AI without validating it as a person, your answers will likely be wrong. Okay. Moving forward. So I had 45 respondents to my survey, and I asked ChatGPT to ingest the data. The prompt that I said was, This is a table of data on people who use AI for their entrepreneurial needs. Ingest this data and show it to me as a table. ChatGPT responded, I've ingested your dataset and formatted it into a structured table. You can now explore and analyze the AI tools people use in their specific applications in entrepreneurial work. Excellent. So for ingesting the data, some tools will allow you to upload an Excel file. For ChatGPT, this is a paid feature. So I actually just ended up pasting the data into the text field. So something I noticed kind of right off the bat is that this is not my data. This is ChatGPT's summarized version of my data, which is crazy. All I said was, please ingest this table, and ChatGPT said, sure, I'll summarize it for you and give you kind of like my idea of what the data is. This makes me nervous because I have no idea how this has been summarized. If I didn't know my data really well before I put it into ChatGPT, I may have just thought that this is what people said. This is not people's wording at all. This is ChatGPT's wording. So I revised my prompt. I said, remake this table only using the specific data that I provided in the prompt above. Do not summarize or edit responses. It was like, okay, I rebuilt the data, et cetera, et cetera. I said, please provide the table with all 45 entries. Perfect. Here's a full raw table with all 45 entries using only the exact data you provided, no summarizing or editing. First of all, I'm a little bit annoyed that I had to say this much information in detail just for purely ingesting my data and putting it in a table. But I was like, okay, fine. It actually gave me the data exactly as it was inputted. That's excellent. But at this point, I was wondering, even if ChatGPT presents a table to me with the summarized text, is it still storing the original text at all? Is it even ingesting it, or is it just converting it and only working with the summarized text? Can it still help me pull quotes if I need to? So I said, please help me pull some quotes where there's an exclamation mark. I do this often for just finding out, like, show me where someone was excited about something or emphatic about something. It's just a good gut check. And hilariously, this is what ChatGPT said to me. Here are the quotes from the data where someone used an exclamation mark. Only 2 out of these 8 quotes use exclamation marks. It's ludicrous, honestly. This made me laugh out loud because honestly, such a simple request. Not a single exclamation mark anywhere. ChatGPT has done so much for me. 1 exclamation mark and then another one here. I was like, okay, I am not using ChatGPT. Switching to Claude. Okay, so Claude, immediately a much better experience. I just said, ingest this data, right? I didn't say ingest this data, put it in a table, blah, 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 anything. I just said ingest this data. This is what it provided to me. I've ingested the data from your document. This appears to be survey results from 45 independent consultants. It kind of validates for me. It shows me immediately that it knows what I'm talking about. And then okay, we are really running out of time. So
yeah, I just wanted to jump on and say, go ahead and start wrapping up so that we can finish on by the end of the hour. Go ahead, Vishakha. I'm sorry.
For sure. Okay, no, totally. Okay, so Claude was great, but you see here that it says mentions, and I wondered whether it was actually counting the number of users that mentioned this or whether it was counting the number of times people said ChatGPT overall. So I revised my prompt again to users. Make sure that the mention should only be counted by user, and now it edited it. So here's our results. The slides will be available, so I'm going to skim through these. Overall, everyone uses ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and then there's a lot of other tools, Copilot is on here as well, that people use for other specific reasons.
Are you able to share any of that, Vishakha, for when we send out the email to everybody later?
Yes. Everyone will get
awesome.
this whole deck, including all of my embarrassing inputs.
Perfect. Because what we'll do is we'll share that with the email that goes out to all the folks who are on the list to be a part of this session today. Great, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So I kind of wanted to maybe just open it up for a couple minutes. My key takeaway is that AI isn't going anywhere, but also neither are we. I think that what I wanted to emphasize through this presentation is that AI can be so helpful for us as independent consultants. We don't often have collaborators, or we try to, but there's a lot of things that I apply to on my own, a lot of work that I do on my own. So it's really valuable for me personally to have just something to do gut checks for me. but you also saw that there are so many opportunities to just have AI give you wrong information, right? That's why you need a human. I'm not trusting AI with anything. I'm kind of using it as like I'm throwing spaghetti on the wall. Like ChatGPT is giving me back spaghetti and I'm like turning the spaghetti into alphabet soup. I don't know where this analogy is going, but generally you get what I'm saying. Okay, so I think we are
I'm
at
going to go ahead
time.
and stop recording and say goodbye to everybody out in the YouTube land, and we will only be on for about a minute afterwards because I gotta scoot to another meeting too.